Okay. Now I have started the recording. What I want to tell you is more, I'll try to avoid talking in Telugu during this class because this is recording, and when I'm posting this somewhere, I'm not comfortable talking in Telugu with respect to class sessions and all. So I'll try to minimize the usage of Telugu language to try to follow like this in the form of continuous communication in English. Now the recording is on, so accordingly you can get back to the things. Hopefully time is also ready now. Yeah, it's already up. Okay, I'll just make this. Yes. One second, boys, girls. One second. Right. So let us now start our next chapter. That is gravitation, and these are the things what we have in this chapter. Gravitation chapter include these things. We'll be talking about interaction, Kepler's laws, universal law of gravitation, acceleration due to gravity, acceleration due to, these are the contents of this chapter. That is acceleration due to gravity above and below of what? Above and below the surface of the earth. Above and below the surface of the earth. If there is a earth, if you go from the top, from the, we are standing on the surface of the earth. From surface, if you go up, how what is happening to acceleration due to gravity? And from there, if you go down, what is acceleration due to gravity? Then we talk about GPE, gravitational potential energy. GPE stands for what? Gravitational potential energy. Escape speed. Escape speed. After that, we have Earth satellites. Hopefully, you know what the satellite is. Energy of a satellite, orbiting satellite. Energy of orbiting satellites. Then we have these things in the form of geostationary and polar satellite. Geostationary satellites and polar satellites. Weightlessness, and some parts are to be, there is some syllabus removed or not included in the actual part, and those part is in the form of 9.2, 9.9. What is 9.2? 9.2 means Kepler's laws. These are the deletions what we have. 9.2 means this one. This is not there in the syllabus. 9.3 is universal law of gravitation. This is also deleted for this year. And 9.5 is acceleration due to gravity, not below and above. It is there on the surface is remote. On surface of the earth, this part, these three parts are remote. This is 9.2, this is 9.10, this is 9.5. These three parts are not included in the syllabus. These are removed from the syllabus. Okay, wait a while. I'll just 2 minutes. I need wait. You can text me if you have anything specifically to ask now. I'm not happy with the setup. Actually, this is that's the reason why I'm using this. Okay, these are the contents what I wish to know you, I wish you people to let you know. Now, my question here is, try to check how many things you know from this. Try to check and answer how many things you know from this. మీకు ఇందులో ఏమేమి తెలుసు? What you know from this? You will just let me know. How many things you know from this? Are you all able to hear me or not? No responses, students. We'll restart if you're not able to hear me. Let me know that. Able to hear me? Yeah, no response. Yes, Nikita. Okay. Anything you know? Any others? Anything you know from this? You know what is acceleration due to gravity? You know what is universal law of gravitation? Acceleration due to gravity, you know, right? Kundalaya, yes, sir. Yes, right. Right. Gravitational potential. So these are the content. Just let me just tell you, these are the contents what we are going to learn. And now let us have some introduction first. Let us have, see, try to concentrate on the things when the things are happening. What that I have decided is not to prolong much on one topic unnecessarily. Let us not prolong on one thing for a longer time. Let us try to complete or finish the chapter at the earliest part that helps us for learning something else better. Learn something at the given time in a short form. I mean, I just want to, I just want we people to improvise in our these cases, in our understanding phenomenons. So first, let us focus on introductory part. Shall we do that? Introduction. This is a very common thing for everyone to experience this gravitation. Right now, you people try to answer what you know, what will be gravitation. We are hearing this gravitation from long time, from long time onwards. I'll remove this. What is that you know about gravitation? G.603, 6.626 in fact. Kondalaya, it was G 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 11. That is the numerical value of universal gravitational constant denoted by capital G. Numerical value of universal gravitational constant. Now the question is mechanically, generally, what is that you know about this gravitation? What is that you know about this gravitation? Anything you can text, anything you can type, what you feel. What is somebody texted something? Manasa, gravity is the force of attraction to bodies. Very good. We know this. Or now you can listen to me. You can listen to my speech, Bhashan lecture. Shall I? Shall I start that lecture? Right. Gravitation is a quite a commonly experienced term for many of us. Right from your childhood onwards, you are hearing about this gravitation. Right from your childhood, we know. Under this heading of gravitation, actually we try to understand the motion of celestial bodies. What is that we try to understand? We try to understand the motion of celestial bodies. What are celestial bodies? What are celestial bodies, the bodies which move in the space, shining objects which are present in the space, space science, astronomical science, those kind of stars, suns, all these things that comes under the bodies present in the solar system are the one which can be regarded as a celestial body. Celestial bodies are which are shining and which are moving. How are these able to move? What is the things responsible? The science behind this is understood in this chapter. Under this heading of gravitation, we have these things like how the concept of universal law of gravitation has arisen, right? What the first thing we know about this universal law of gravitation? First thing, what is it we know? First and foremost thing, what is it we know? Now we are accepting some kind of a science or some kind of a concept like this. Planets are revolving around the sun. At present, we are following this. That is, a planet. All the planets in the solar system revolve around the sun, right? Revolve around the sun. But this is not the conclusion taken directly. That is not the conclusion taken directly. How this is actually formed? The different scientists who involved inside this. Different scientists in the form of, I'll not write all the names. It's a lengthy process of writing. Just listen to this and try to remember that. Okay. There were different scientists who exhumed different theories of nature. All these things are taking place in nature itself, right? All these things are taking place in nature itself. Different scientists believed that earlier we used to follow uh, geocentric theory. The motion of satellites first was believed to be geocentric. Later it was changed to heliocentric. Geocentric and heliocentric. What is the meaning of these two things? What do you mean by geo? Any idea what is geo? In order to understand the motion of satellites or planets in the solar system, different scientists put forward different kinds of theories. Earlier, we used to follow geocentric theory about the solar system, about geocentric theory about the motion of the planets in the solar system. Geo means Earth, right? Yadgiri. Earlier, we followed geocentric theory. We, in the sense, people believed earlier about geocentric theory. Later, it was supposed that this is no longer a valid theory. Another theory called as heliocentric theory. Geocentric theory means, in this case, Earth is going to be the center of the solar system. And in the universe, Earth is going to be at the center, and remaining all other things. Earth remains at the center, and remaining all the things would be following. That means if this is the Earth, around the Earth, different kinds of planets are going to revolve. All the other planets, whatever you know, all the 9 planets or 8 planets, whatever we know, all the things, moon, sun, all these things were follow or revolving around this Earth is a theory what was accepted for nearly 1400 years. Somewhere in the beginning, 1700, 1300 years, whenever it was believed that Earth is at the center of the universe and remaining all other planets are revolving around the Earth. For how long this was accepted? This was accepted for almost, and this was given by Copernicus. Name of the scientist who given this one is Copernicus. Copernicus suggested that Earth is at the center of the universe. Earth is at the center of the universe, and remaining all other planets are revolving around the sun. Once again, sorry. Yeah, the correction is, I want to make one correction. Geocentric theory Yeah, Ptolemy theory, right? That's what the name I was searching. Not was geocentric theory was not given by Copernicus. It was given by a scientist named as Ptolemy first, which was believed for very large number of years in the form of up to nearly 400 years. Later, one more scientist called as Copernicus put forward another theory in the form of heliocentric. Now, what is this heliocentric theory? Heliocentric theory means it is not Earth is at the center of the universe, it is the sun which is at the center of the universe. And helio means sun. Sun is the center of the universe. These are the first two theories. Earlier belief was that geocentric theory. Later, after so many long years, yes, sun. Copernicus heliocentric, right? That's right, the students. Accordingly, these were the two theories which was introduced or which were believed in the beginning stage, heliocentric theory. First, the primary concept of learning of science is understood in terms of geocentric theory, which was widely accepted for long many number of years. Later, one more scientist called as Copernicus approved or proved that it is not the sun at the center of the universe. It is not the moon, Earth at the center of the universe. It is the sun which is at the center of the universe. This is first point. And some more scientists in the form of Aristotle, in the form of Tycho Brahe, in the form of Kepler, these people also did some experiments. Galileo, using his telescope, observing this motion of celestial bodies. Different scientists, different scientists were there, physicists were there. Tycho Brahe is one among them. One important observations he made, and he could not put forward any theory. I mean, he understood many things about this one, but he could not develop his concepts because he was expired during his research works only. He was expired during his research work, and later his assistant called as Johannes Kepler. His assistant called named as what? Johannes Kepler explained his theories in more proper form. Guru Shishya. He is a guru and he is a Shishya. He did some experiment, but he could not put forward anything. He expired, and then his assistant or his student made important remarks made by his guru. Upon he got the credit for that experiment. And in that conclusions, it was that Earth is no doubt at the center of the universe, but all the planets are not revolving in the form of circular orbits. We used to believe, or people used to believe earlier, that all the planets are revolving in the form of circular orbits. In the earlier theories, people believed that all the planets are moving around the Earth or in the Sun in the form of circular orbits. But Kepler made a conclusion that it is not in the form of circular orbits, it is in the form of elliptical orbits. What is elliptical orbit? What is elliptical orbit? Elliptical orbits. What do you mean by elliptical? In the form of oval shape, in the form of egg shape. Planets are not revolving in the form of what shape? These are not revolving in the form of circular shape, but these are now revolving in the form of what? Elliptical orbits. Could you make out any difference between these here? Could you make out any difference here? Earlier it was believed that sun is at the center, all the planets are revolving in the perfect circular paths, which was active for some years. And again, it was again approved or proved by this scientist called as Kepler that all the planets will not revolve around the Earth in circular orbits, but they're revolving in the form of what? Elliptical orbits. Elliptical means it is going to have two kinds of axes with that. These the parts present in an elliptical. This is a place where planet is present and planet is revolving like this. And the shape, the path followed by the planet is not going to the form of circular. It is now going to have an elliptical path. Elliptical path will be having two things in that called as major axis and minor axis. The two things present in elliptical path are termed as major axis and minor axis. What is major axis? Clearly you can check here. Clearly you can check that this is what the lengthier side. This is the shortest side. The lengthier one is called as major axis, and the minor, the short length of that is called as the, in a closed path, if you take one side, it is going to have the largest length, one more side is going to have the smallest length. Smallest length is called as minor axis, largest length is called as major axis. Now in a circle, how these two are related? In a circle, for a circular path, how major axis and minor axis are related? You can answer this. You can answer this. What is the relationship between major axis and minor axis in a circular path? Equal. Very good, Manasa. Both are same. Yeah. If both the axes are remaining same, then that becomes circular path. If one of that is different, one is large, other is small, it will be now going to become elliptical path. Now, practically, you can observe these things when you, we can find many number of videos, right, about the motion of planets. You'll find that when sun is present here, all the planets are revolving in this form. Have you noticed? You can see any number of videos which makes sun is present, earth is present, Jupiter, Mars, like distance, let us not bother. All are revolving in the form of, this is the way how the planets are revolving. This is what the concept of planetary motion. And likewise, we have Newton's laws for, Newton's laws of motion. In case of planets, the motion of the planets were dealt in terms of what? Kepler's laws. Kepler's laws of planetary motion, and these are actually not included for us. Kepler's, there are three laws: first law, second law, and third law. I'll just brief. What is first law states? First law of Kepler states that all the planets revolving around the sun in perfect elliptical orbits. First law of Kepler states that all the planets, earlier theories were circular paths, but circular paths were removed and it was given in the form of what? Elliptical orbits. All the planets will revolve in the form of elliptical orbits. Second law states that perfect elliptical orbits. Second law states that the area sweeps by a planet during some time, the area sweeps by a planet remains same for equal intervals of time. What do you mean by, how to try to understand this concept? This is the sun, and let us suppose one planet called as Earth is here. Earth is now revolving. What is second law states? You have to define like this. Kepler's second law states that the area swept by a planet during any time interval will be always, during some constant time interval, will be always remaining constant. The area swept by an planet around the sun sweeps equal areas in equal intervals of time. What do you mean by equal areas in equal intervals of time? If I draw a line joining from sun to the earth like this, let us suppose in 5 minutes, where does earth goes? In 5 minutes, earth is revolving like this. This is earth, this is sun. In 5 minutes, where does earth goes? Let us suppose it goes in 5 minutes up to here. In 5 minutes, it is coming from here to here, right? Simple thing. Now there is some area swept by this. From here to here, there is some area enclosed inside this closed path. The line joining of sun to the earth is sweeping. From here to here, it is traveling some, this is the area enclosed, right? This is called as area swept by the earth. What is called as area swept? Let us indicate this area as dA1. From here to here, area enclosed is dA1. For how much time it is traveling? In 5 minutes, it is covering this much of area. This is at some time, at what time? At, let us suppose, at some initial time of t equals 0. After some more time, earth would come here, as it is revolving candle, it would reach this position, right? Now from here, it again traveling like this. Again, if you take 5 minutes, again, this is the actual path where the sun and earth present. Now after 5 minutes, it would cut somewhere here. Again, there is some other area enclosed here. Let us, now this is the area what we said dA2. dA1 is the area at some location. dA2 is the area swept at some other location. But these two are maintaining equal times. During same time interval, it sweeps how much area? According to Kepler's second law, area of one should be equals to area of two. Area of one is equals to, this is a Kepler's second law. Kepler's second law states that the line joining of the planet to the sun, line joining of planet to the sun, these two, line joining. This is a line. You have to define like this. The line joining, here we are talking about planet Earth, or it could be any planet. The line joining of planet to the Earth sweeps equal areas in equivalence of time. No matter wherever the Earth is wherever the Earth is, as long as the time period is remaining constant, area swept by that also remains constant. If you take again the sun here, Earth is here, and in 5 minutes it goes here. This is the area dA3. As long as from one location you take same time, no matter where the location of the particle is, during same time interval, it sweeps equal area. This is called as Kepler's second law of planetary motion. How to put this in the form of statement? The line joining of planet to the sun, sweeps equal areas. Sweeps, SW Uchadam, sweeps how much area it covers here. Sweeps equal areas in equal, as long as time is remaining same, the area includes that is also going to be remaining same. Actually, this is out of syllabus, but you should know the basic definitions or basic statements. Both are same in circle. That is old one, right? The concept clear? What is second law now? Second law states that the line joining of planet to the sun sweeps equal areas in equal intervals of time. Third law. Does elliptical orbits have equal radius? No. Radius is going to elliptical orbits itself means something like this. Where is equal radius here? This length is different. This length is different. This length is different. This length is different. Accordingly, right? Kundalaya. If radius is same throughout, then it is going to become a circle. If it is very good, Madhu. If it is radius equal, then it becomes a circle. Elliptical path means having different lengths. Different. That is the reason we say elliptical path is defined by the terms called as are understood by the terms using major axis and minor axis. In elliptical path, we do come across two paths. Major axis and the longest one is called as major axis and the shortest one is called as the minor axis. In between short to maximum, what happens? The radius or the length keeps on changing. Lowest possible value is minor axis. Maximum possible is major, but in between these two, what happens? The value of radius is going to increase from minimum from that what it is from minor axis to major axis. And Kepler's third law states that time period is directly proportional to cube of the radius. How much of time it takes to make what this law states is that if this is the elliptical path in which planet is revolving, if it is starting here, in order to come back to this is a cube. In order to make one complete elliptical path, the time taken is t. Square of time period is equals to cube of the semi-major axis. What is semi-major axis? This is major axis. This is minor axis. Kepler's third law states that square of time period of a planet around the Earth is always directly proportional to cube of the semi-major axis. A is called as semi-major axis. What do you mean by semi-major axis? Semi-major axis means half of the major axis. Where is half of the major axis means from here to here it is major axis, right? Here to here it is major axis. If I suppose this major axis as A, this becomes A by 2. A by 2 is semi-major axis. But here we are indicating semi-major axis itself by A. Half, right? Very good. Here we are indicating semi-major axis itself as A value. Means I want to say this itself is A value. Then what would be major axis? What would be the major axis? If semi-major axis is A, 2A it is. Very good, simple, easy. We are using the term A to indicate semi-major axis, that's it. not a by 2. If this total length is major axis, I have taken an example earlier that if this total length is major axis, this total length is no doubt major axis. If I denote that by a, this becomes a by 2, this becomes a by 2, because semi means half, exactly half of that. But in textbook, in the context what you are following, a itself is taken as semi major axis. If this is semi major axis, this is also going to be one more semi major axis. Double of that is going to be the major axis. Now Kepler's third law states that, define like this. Yeah, all of you are answering this. Manasa, Madhu, Ramyashri, right? 280s. What does Kepler's third law states? Kepler's third law states that the square of time period of the period of revolution of a planet around the sun. T indicates what? Time period of revolution of the planet around the sun. Square of time period is directly proportional to cube of this. I mean, he did some experiments, and from that experiments he came to this conclusion. Most important formula it is. 3 laws. What is first law states? Kepler's 3 laws. Though it is deleted, I am just giving you some briefer because I don't know exactly at what time that is going to be useful for us. There are 3 important laws given by Kepler. I'll just write those 3 these 3 statements like this. Now under gravitation we have Kepler's laws. Kepler's laws of planetary motion. Newton's law of what? Motion only. Motion of the objects, but Kepler's laws talks about what? Motion of the planets. Newton's laws of Kepler's laws of planetary motion. What does first law states? First law states that all the planets are not revolving around the sun in the form of circular orbits, but all the planets are revolving in the form of what orbits? They are now revolving in the form of elliptical orbits. The moment we say elliptical orbits, I'm just recapping the entire part. The moment we say elliptical orbit, we should now talk about 2 important parts. What are they? That is called as major axis, and another is called as minor axis. Major axis having larger length around the elliptical path. Minor axis is the one it's having shorter in the length. This is the first law. And also, let me just give you some more knowledge on this. There are two kinds of things called as perihelion. Two more things will come across called as perihelion, and another one is called as aphelion. Now, since this portion is deleted, most of the faculty may not explain this, but let us remember these 2 parts. 2 important things. Any idea what is perihelion and what is aphelion? Perihelion and aphelion. Perihelion and aphelion. No. Okay, I'll just brief up that. Madhu. Perihelion and aphelion. Now, Ramya, no. Okay, and anyways, I'm going to brief up that. Perihelion. Let us just define this in a more proper form. Let us define Kepler's first law. This is one thing. In this class, even if you understand 3 Kepler's laws thoroughly, that is sufficient, not to bother much, because we are starting something new. If you get something from that is well and good, right? So just concentrate, don't bother about completion. Let us try to understand this. How many laws are there under Kepler's planetary motion? In planetary motion, Kepler's, there are 3 laws. What is first law says? What is first law states? First law is named as law of orbits. You should know this name. What is first law's name is? First law's name is laws of orbits. The name of first law is law of orbits. Kepler's first law. It is called as Kepler's first law or law of orbits. What is first law states? First law states that all the planets will revolve around law of orbits. Very good. Okay. First law states that all the planets will revolve around the sun in the form of elliptical orbits. That's it. Statement is that much only. All the planets revolving around the sun in the form of elliptical orbits. Where listen, continuation, in the form of elliptical orbits. with sun present at one of the foci. Sun is going to present at one of the, now check out this part again. This is elliptical orbit. This is a elliptical orbit. Sun every time will not present here because that also keeps moving according to planet. Sun could be present. This is called as foci. Any length on the major axis, sun is not present here. Sun would be presenting at some other place because with respect to different kinds of planets, the path is going to be. If sun is here, planets will move keep differently path. The location, the different points present on the major axis are called as what? Foci. When a planet is revolving around this one, sun could present either here or sun could present either here. Either one of this place sun is going to present, that is called as sun is at one of the foci. Sun is not exactly at the center of this one. It could be present anywhere on the foci. Either it could present somewhere here or it could present somewhere here. Sun is going to present at one of the foci. Nano Karthik says nearest point of sun in the Earth's orbit. Right. Now, what is perihelion means? If sun is here, let us suppose sun is present here. If sun is here, Earth is revolving. Concentrate, all of you, listen here. Sun is here, Earth is revolving in the elliptical orbit around the sun like this. Earth is revolving around the Earth in elliptical orbits like this. Now concentrate, if Earth is revolving, it is going like this. It comes to some location here. When Earth is revolving, could it come to this location or not? And this is the shortest possible length between the Earth and the sun. This is the closest path of Earth getting closer to sun. Earth has reached very closer to the sun at this location. And once it crosses, it now goes its length increasing, right? And where is the farthest length now? If Earth is moving like this one is, if sun is here, this is the farthest length and this is the shortest length between the sun and Earth. Any other locations are having different lengths. Accordingly, this shortest length is called as perihelion and the largest length is called as aphelion. What is perihelion and aphelion now? Clear? Perihelion. Perihelion is the shortest length between the planet to the sun. There are many planets. Simple thing. I'm just telling in a smaller, very slow rate. There are hundreds of planets revolving around the Earth. First point, clear. When a planet is revolving around the Earth, there is a situation for that planet to get closest distance to the sun. One planet, I'm supposing that planet to be Earth. When Earth is revolving, while moving around the sun, it is going to have some kind of, because it is not circular path to maintain this distance to be same throughout. What kind of path it is? It is now going to be elliptical path. Since this is now elliptical path, during this elliptical path, what can happen? Earth can get very closer to the sun. Earth can, at some point of time, it can be very closer. At some other point of time, it can be very far away from that. The closest or the shortest between the planet to the sun is called as perihelion. What is perihelion? The closest or the shortest between the planet to the sun is called as, sun is fixed. Sun is a thing which is center of the universe. Only planets will keep on moving around us. One planet will come closer to that. And the farthest distance from that planet to the sun is called as aphelion. Yes, very good. Vanilla, you understand this? Though this topic is deleted, but terminologies, why I'm explaining this terminologies, this thing actually is under the concept of deleted headings. But still, I just want to make sure that you know these terms. Somebody asks you what it is, you should know. And once you cross this class, nobody will teach you these things again. In your higher classes, nobody will teach you this. So accordingly, I'm just briefing up the needed things. No, we may waste 1 or 2 classes, but we'll get some important points. This is minor axis. This is major axis. That what is now? How can you define major axis? Well, how can you define major axis now using these terminologies? The total distance from perihelion to aphelion. The displacement from perhelion to aphelion is called as major axis. Major axis value is given by major axis. Major axis is equals to shortest, displacement from A to P. Then what is semi-major axis? You should answer this now. Semi-major axis. Major axis is, yeah, Vanilla answered correctly. Earth is known as aphelion, right? Major axis is the shortest displacement between perhelion and aphelion. AP, A stands for aphelion, P stands for perhelion. Shortest between the displacement in these is called as major axis. What is AP by 2? As simple as that, half of that is called as semi-major axis. If this is perhelion, this is aphelion, total distance between these two things from here to it is called as major axis, and half of that is called as semi-major axis. Semi-major axis is indicated by AP by 2. These are the terminologies you should know. So, is the first law clear now? Is the first law clear? First law is called as law of orbits. First law is called as law of orbits. What is the statement of first law? Kepler's first law states that all the planets revolve around the sun in the form of elliptical orbits. Once we talk about elliptical orbits, the other things will come forward. Major axis, minor axis, perhelion, aphelion. Half of that is called as semi-major axis. All these things are the various things present under elliptical path. This is the first law. Now, second law. Kepler's second law. Kepler's second law states that statement is like this. The line joining of planet to the sun, the line, I'm writing, joining of a planet, the line joining of a planet to the sun sweeps equal areas in equal intervals of time. Already explained this. You should put it like this. This is the statement called as law of areas. First one was law of orbits. Second one is called as what? Law of areas. What is second one called as? Second one is called as law of areas. What is statement of law of areas? Statement of law of areas says that the line joining of planet to the sun sweeps equal areas in equal intervals of time. Very good, Vanilla. Law of areas. Is the second law clear? Nothing much we describe. We should know the statement of the laws. Whether you know that or not is important. What is that? Law of areas. I explained that. How, what do you mean by sweeping equal areas? During some time, how much area it covers. During the same time, no matter wherever maybe the location is, during one time, it sweeps some area. During the same time, anywhere throughout the elliptical path you take, for the given time, it gives covers same area. The line joining of planet to the sun, if this is the sun, and if this is the earth, center to center is this line. This is the line joining of planet to sun. This is now moving like this, sweeping some area. This area remains same throughout wherever maybe the location is, subject to the condition that all the time should be taken. For equal times, it covers equal areas. Very good, clear. Third law. Third law. What this third law states? Third law. Kepler's third law states that. What is the name of third law? Name of third law is law of periods, time period it is. Law of orbits, law of areas, and law of periods, time period it is. Law of periods. What is law of periods states? It says that the square of time period of revolution of a planet around the sun, formula directly, T square is directly proportions to A cube. Square, why did you get square there? Why did you get cube there? Depends upon the experiments done by the scientist named as Kepler. So we are not bothered about what he did. The result is that what we need for us. What is that? The square of time period of a planet around the sun. The square of time period of a planet. Time period means time period for one complete elliptical path. Every time time period means not for some short path. It is for one complete, minimum one complete revolution. The square of time period of revolution around the earth, around the sun, is always directly proportional to cube of semi-major axis. These three are the important laws under the heading of what? Kepler's, right? Remember this law of orbits, law of areas. Somebody when asked you, you should be in a position to answer what it is. To answer what this kind of laws. Now we have seen some known or important things like aphelion, perihelion, semi-major axis, minor axis, all these things, right? Right. We have just done the concept of what? Kepler's three laws. Kepler's three laws. Law of areas. First one is law of orbits. Second is law of areas. Third one is law of periods. Once we done this, we now talk about another important thing called as Newton's law of gravitation or universal law of gravitation. Though this law is deleted in the syllabus, it is not there in this academic year syllabus. But this is very much needed for the entire concept of physics. There is no physics if you don't know this. And hopefully you know this thing also earlier. We know some kind of an equation like this. This is what the equation of what? Universal law of gravitation. This is a mathematical form or equation of universal law of gravitation. How many of you know this equation? This equation. What is the equation called as? This equation is called as universal law of gravitation. Telsa, entamandi telsa? How many of you know this? What is F here? Let us try to understand this equation. What is F here? Force of what, Manasa? Force. You know, Sriman Narayana, very good. Gravitational force of gravity, very good. Force between two objects, very good, Lavanya. Gravitational force, Ramya, very good, right. Gravitational force, Begum, Samina, right, right, right. Now let me just tell some important points about the equation. Let me just brief up. This is called as the equation of magnitude of force. This equation is called as what? The equation of magnitude of force. This equation is called as the equation of magnitude of force. What kind of force this is going to be? It is always going to be attractive force. Important point. What is this? This force is always going to be attractive. In which tube? Where this force is going to be seen? This force is going to be seen upon two masses, any two masses in the universe. What Newton's law of gravitation says? This is called as universal law of gravitation or Newton's law of gravitation. What is Newton's law of gravitation states? Newton's law of gravitation states that in the universe, in between any two masses, m1, m2 or any two masses, in between two masses, there always exists the force of attraction. There are now, if this is one mass, if this is one mass, if this is one more mass, these are present in the universe. In the universe, why it is called as universal? It is applicable for all the bodies in the universe, no matter how big or how small the mass is. How big or how small the mass is in the universe, in between any two masses, there always exists the force of what? Attraction. In between two masses, the force of attraction. Why are we using the word force of attraction? Here we use the word attraction because masses are not having any kind of charge with it. Can't hear you. Yadgiri. Water. I have taken some sip of water. Now I'm talking. Can you hear me now? Proportional. Kundalaya. Yadgiri, can you hear me now? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I took a break to have sip of water. Right. Right. Just remember. Okay, I'll tell you. First of all, let us define universal law of gravitation. This is called as universal law of gravitation or Newton's law of gravitation. Why it is called as universal? Because it is applicable to anything on the universe. That is the reason it is called as universal law. It is valid for any two masses. If there are two masses separated by distance of now this is one mass, this is one more mass, and these two are separated by some distance. Mass number 1, mass 2 separated by some distance. Now, in between these two, according to Newton's law, there exists some kind of force of attraction. What do you mean by force of attraction? Force of attraction means this mass will attract this here, and this mass will attract this here. This is the meaning of what? Attractive force. There is no repulsive force between these two. What is repulsive force now? There is no tendency for this one to go away from this, or there is no tendency for this to go away from this like this. That's the reason we call this as what? Only the law of attraction. It is called as what? Law of attraction. According to Newton's law of universal law of gravitation, in between two masses in the universe which are separated by some distance. Now I have kept a bottle here. These two are separated by some distance. The magnitude of that attractive force is given by this equation, or more precisely, these are actually given by this form. More precisely, you can write like this. According to universal law of gravitation, there exists a force in two masses. The magnitude of force is directly proportional to the product of the masses. Magnitude of force is directly proportional to the product of the masses, and it is inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. By combining this one, you are going to get an equation given by means of F is equals to m1 m2 by r square. By removing this proportionality symbol, you are going to get that equation given by means of what? G m1 m2 by r square. More precisely or more mathematically, if you have a mass like this, let us suppose this is mass m1. There is one more mass called as m2. Separated by what distance? Separated by distance r means what? Center to center, there exists a distance given by means of r. Center to center distance it is. Now, m2 attracts m1 towards this one. m1 attracts m2 towards this one. Force acting on 2 because of, now there are two forces, F12 and F21. What is F12? F12 is a force acting on 2 because of 1. Force acting on 2 because of 1. F1 is making some force to act on 2. F21, force acting on 2 because of 1. Vice versa it is. F12 is a force exerted by 1 on 2. F21 is a force exerted on 2 by 1. 1 on 2 and 2 on 1. Force exerted on 1 by 2. Force exerted on 2 by 1. Accordingly, there are two forces. One force F12 is making, in order F12 is making to go in this direction, F21 is coming in this direction. Means one is attracting there. That is the meaning of what? Attractive force given by means of this equation. Which are separated by what distance? Separated by distance of what? Shortest distance from center to center is r. There are some other distances. If you take some other path like this, some other path like this, you are going to get various distances. All these distances are not the criterion. So only what distance you have to take now? You have to take the concept of what? Now, can you say that if F12, what is the relationship between F12 and F21? You can try to answer this. There are two masses M1, M2, separated distance of r. F1 is exerting a force on 2 given by means of F12. F2 is exerting some force on 1 given by means of F21. What is the relationship between F12 and F21? Can anybody answer this? Action and reaction. Very good. Very good. Attractive force. Very good. Mathematically, you can put this force like this. F12 is equals to minus times of 2F1. What is the meaning of this one? Important thing. If F12 constitutes action force, like Yadgiri said, F21 constitutes reaction force, goes in the opposite direction. Attractive force, and they are moving in opposite directions. What is the direction of F12? If F12 is acting in this direction, F21 would act in the same direction because masses are same. Newton's third law. Very good. Because M1, M2 are same, constant for both. Distance is same. G is anyways universal. It is same. When all the four factors become same, F also becomes same, right? Accordingly, these two will now constitute action and reaction fates. It means that if F12 is acting in this direction, F21 will be acting in the backward direction. We can write that F sum of these two will be sum of the two forces will be equals to 0. And what is G this? What is G? G is called as universal gravitational constant. Universal gravitational constant. And we have seen in dimensional formulas. Earlier we did some dimensional formulas. Earlier we have seen some dimensional formulas, right? There you have written dimensional formula. Name that physical quantity. Anybody remember what was that? What is the importance of this capital G? Importance of this capital G. Importance of this capital G. This is the only physical parameter with what? Negative dimensions of mass. I told you earlier. This is the only parameter with negative dimensions of mass. Anybody remember the dimensional formula of G, capital G? Dimensional formula of capital G. M inverse L cube T square T power minus 2. Something like this. Check out the correctness in this. Check out the correctness in this. There is only one physical quantity or constant with negative dimensions of mass, and that is what the value of G is. Now, this is the equation law of gravitation, universally accepted. The meaning of this equation is in between two masses in the universe. Those two masses could be anything. Those two masses could be anything. Now, let me say, do you know the value of G? Somebody answered earlier. The value of G is given by. The value of G is given by what? Right, L cube T square. That's what T power minus 2. I have written it. Right, right. The value of G is 1 second. Right. Yeah. Right. The value of G is going to be 6.67 into 10 to the power of minus 11 Newton meter square per kg square. We did this. We have come across this earlier also, right? And again, we are now understanding that thoroughly. Right? Right. 6.66. Right. Right. Vanilla, Yadgiri, Lavanya, Nikita, most of you answered this. Yadgiri, attractive force, Rishita, all that. It's clear, right? What is that? What is the physical meaning of Newton's law of gravitation now? Physical meaning is that If you have one mass here, if you have one more mass here, this is mass m1, this is mass m1, this is mass m2. From center to center, there is some distance in between. I can take a scale, I can find this distance, right? Now I can find the force exerted by F12 and force this is exerting on this given of 2F1. You can understand this is the thing. Now what according to universal law of gravitation, this marker will attract duster towards it and this duster will attract marker towards it. Now the question is, I'm going to ask one question, try to answer it. The question is, why are we not able to feel that force? If these two are attracting each other, after some time it should happen that they should come and mix or they should come and meet. This is attracting this is attracting this. Why are we not able to see that? Why are we not getting that? Any answer? Any answer? Why are we not able to feel that? Less attractive force, no charges. Charges second to Chema Madhu. No. Charges not related here. Masses only. For masses only, we say masses only we say no attractive force. Equal and opposite, but still what you can do is to understand this, use that formula of F is equals to G m1 m2 by r square, and how much this distance? 15 centimeters, closer to 15. R is 15 centimeters. How much could be this weight? How much is the mass of this one? Not even 10 grams, 50 grams. Let us suppose Chetak 50 grams. Since this is bigger, say 100 grams, double of that. Use that value in this formula. F is equals to G m1 m2 by r square. M1 is there, very less. M2 is less. R is there. Let us take these three different. Now what is G present there? G is 10 to the power of minus 11. What is the 10 to the power of minus 11 order? It is 10 to the power of 0.00000 up to 11 terms 11, 6.627. 0.000, like that 11 zeros you have to put. Is that small or big then? That force is going to be small because of the presence of capital G, and this capital G is a verified value. There is also a way how to do that. We see that in next class, right? Because G is in the form of the order of 10 to the power of minus 11, because G is of this order, in that equation of F is equals to G m1 m2 by r square. In this equation, G is of the order of 6.627 to the power minus 11. If you take 1 kg, and 1 meter, all this becomes one only. How much is the force now? F is equals to 10 to the power of minus 11 order. This is, I'm supposing, two 1 kg bodies separated by 1 meter. 1 kg, 1 kg, 1 meter. What happens? This whole factor becomes 1. This whole of this will become equals to 1. Then this is equals to how much is the force now? 6.627 to the power of minus 11. Is that small or big? Is that small or big? Very small force. Accordingly, we cannot feel that force. These two are attracting each other. These two are attracting each other because of the presence of 10 to the power of minus 11 order. That force cannot be seen here. So this is what the important parts of Newton's law. One important thing what you should remember, that Newton's law of gravitation. Newton's law of gravitation, that force is always an attractive force. Like Madhu was telling about charges. Let me just talk about that point also. We use this equation in three forms. F is equals to G m1 m2 by r square. In this chapter, later we do come across this equation K q1 q2 by r square. Second equation. Again third one, K is equals to m1 m2 by r square. We do come across this equation in three forms like this. Fourth equation. we are going to come across these three equations in this textbook. P2, P1, P2. By the time of completion of P1, P2, we use that force equation in this forms. This is called as gravitational force between two masses. Newton's law of gravitational force is between two masses written by like this. Whereas this is called as electric force between two charges. Between two charges, electric force is given by this equation, where K is called as proportionality constant, Q1, Q2 are the charges. Here M1, M2 are the masses, R is the distance between them, G is universal gravitational constant. Q1, Q2 are the charges, R is the distance between the charges, K is constant, proportionality constant here. Whereas one more time we use that K times of M1, M2 by R square, where M1, M2 are called as magnetic pole strengths. What is M1, M2 are called as pole strength. In between two charges also you will find electric force. In between two magnets also you find force. This is called as magnetic force. Newton's law of gravitation, Coulomb's law of electrostatics, Coulomb's law of electrostatics, which states that this is Coulomb's law. This is called as inverse square law of magnetism. This is for magnetism, this is for electricity, and this is for gravitation. This is two masses, these two are charges, these two are poles. In between two magnets, whether there is a force or the force is there or not. Between two masses, there is some force. These two can be either attractive or repulsive. If both charges are same, then it is called as repulsive force. Plus charge, plus charge. With two plus charges, what is it we are going to get? Repulsive force. Minus charge, minus charge. With two same charges, what are they going to get? Again, repulsive force. Pole strength, M1, M2. Between two magnets, you can understand that easily. If this is one magnet, this is one more magnet brought closer to each other, what happens? This will attract attractive force. If I keep that poles opposite, this is north pole, this is north pole. I am facing both north poles. Will they attract? No, they repel. They repel. Means magnetism will be having both attractive or repulsive depending on the polarity of charges. Polarity of the magnetic pole strengths. Q1, Q2 can have attractive or repulsive. Electrostatic force can be attractive or repulsive because depending on these two charges, one plus, one more minus attractive, one minus repulsive, one plus repulsive, clearly. Whereas there is no charges, there is no plus or minus here. Accordingly, it is always attractive force. This is always attractive force. This can be attractive force or repulsive force. This can also be attractive force or repulsive force. For this to be attractive force, one north pole should face one south pole. For this to be a repulsive force, both should be north poles or both should be south poles. Attractive force, north and south, south and north. Repulsive force, north, north, south, south. Attractive force, both plus charge and minus charge. Repulsive force, either both plus charges or both minus charges. This can only be attractive no matter whatever the mass is. In this way, in physics context, we use this equation of 3 or 4 number of times. Accordingly, as per the context, we will keep on changing that. You can ask me you can post any doubts if you have so far. Let me have some sip of water again. Okay, what I'll do is I'll just wind up the things here. It's enough for us. Are you able to hear me? All of you? Able to hear me or not? Yes, sir. So what is this according to Newton's law of gravitation? In between two masses. In order to understand this easily, you can feel this. In the universe, in between any two masses, there is always two masses separated by some distance m1, m2. Two masses separated by the distance m1, m2. What these two masses can be? Two masses can be anything. Center to center separation is R. Center to center separation is R. If there are three masses now, let us extend a bit further. If there is one more mass here, just try to answer this. There is one more mass M3 here, separated by distance of, this is R1, this is R2. If there is one more mass here, ఇలా ఉందనుకుందాం ఇంకో mass. Now what happens? Now what happens? R1, R2, Kundala here says R1, R2. Between what and what? Now if you have one more mass like this, now listen, important question this is. This is called as system of masses. Only between two masses it was one force. Earlier we talked about only two masses, there is one force F12. F12, F21, two masses in opposite direction giving two forces. Now what you do is that in between these two there is one force given by F1. How to calculate that F1? F1 is equals to M1 M3 by R2 square. M1 M3 by R. There is one more force here between these two. F2 is equals to M1 M2 by R. Net force is equals to how much? Net force is equals to F1 plus F2. Net force on what? What is net force on M3? Now you do one thing, take this as a question, try to apply your logical points. In this context, for the scene given below, for the scene shown here, find net force on M3, find net force on M1, find net force on M2. Find, for this case, question is find F net on M3, first one. Second one, F net on M2, and third one, F net on M1. Net force on M3 is equals to what? Force on this because of M1 plus force on this because of M2. How much is the net force on this? Upon this, there are two forces acting. Net force on this because of M1 M3 by R square, R2 square, plus M1 M3 M2 M3 by R1 plus R2 whole square. In related equation, net force on M3 is equals to some equation. Net force on M1, sum of this force plus sum of this force. Sum of these two forces. Can you do that? Just try to do. I'm just stopping here. I'm just giving you some work. For this situation, try to find net force on all the three masses. Try to find net force for all the three masses. Do that and you can submit the way you want, however you want. I just want you to understand the concept. That's it, nothing more than that. Right. Anything else? I'll just stop it. I'll just winding up the class here. M1, M2, M3 by R1 plus R2 whole square. No, that you have to put that in proper form, Vanilla. That's not the way. It should be in proper form. Let us check. Write the equation separately and you can send me that. We'll verify that. Anything else you want, you can ask me now. I just stopping the video. Let us have discussion. Right. Now tell me anything else you can ask me. Ask me if you have any specific doubts. Other than that, no specific things. Able to hear me, right? Able to hear me? Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. So today we have first assignment test, right? At what time? Not 7 p.m. Ramyashri, it was changed. Ramyashri, it's not 7 p.m. It's 5 p.m. And the time is decided by HOD of physics, not me. Right? 5 p.m. All of you remember this? At 5 p.m. you have first assignment test syllabus. What is syllabus? Oscillations, Nikita Yadgiri, 8th chapter, Vanilla, right? Full chapter, right? Rishita, Manila, right? Right. How many number of questions? For how many marks? Vanilla 10, 10, 10, 10. For how many marks? Yeah. No choice, right? Right. No choice. No choice. Sir said not to give any choice. Right. Duration is how much? Very good, Puppy. Pujita. 10 questions, 10 marks. 10 marks, right. 45 minutes, Vanilla, correct. Yeah. So you can just refer the things from our textbook or from the class, Nikita, Puppy, Pujita, 45 minutes. Right. So you can also now inform this to all other classes friends if you have. And you no need to do compulsorily, their respective faculties will do that. But this is the common assignment for all the class students at same time. It is for all the entire P1 students at 5 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. Clear? Okay, so when you get some free time, just go through that. Keep revising your concepts and do well. I am telling you, best of 4 would be chosen for your end semester marks. Your promotion to higher classes or passing out this first year depends on these marks. What we are going to. First two we are doing, we did, but only for practice. We'll keep running the practice sessions also. But this assignment is important. Okay. Okay. Shall I sign off now? Shall we conclude the things? It is not opening means I don't know the reason why it is not opening, Seema. We are putting the time of schedule time of 7 p.m. but it is coming at 7:05 like that. Why do one thing? I'll put it at 6:55 today. Let us check. I'll put that schedule time at 6:55. If it opens, it may open 5 minutes before, else it will open at 7 p.m. or 7:1, 7:2 like that. Okay, sir. Seema Tabassum, done. I'll do that. I'll do that. Okay, then all the best. All of you do well. Rishita, sir, thank you. Okay. Okay, good luck. Rock. Rock in your exam. I want all of you to get 10 by 10. Okay, Pujita Pappi. Okay, sir, thank you. Okay, sir. Okay, then take care all of you. Stay safe, stay home, stay healthy, stay happy. Bye, Seema Tabassum. Bye, all others.